was a time often referred to as the Dark Ages, characterized by a lack of centralized authority and widespread societal upheaval. Against this backdrop, the legendary figure of Arthur emerges as a leader who unites the Britons against the Anglo-Saxon invaders. Arthur is celebrated as a warrior king who rallies the people of Britain to resist the Anglo-Saxon threat. However, it is crucial to recognize that while the figure of Arthur is prominent in the historical narrative of post-Roman Britain, the exact details of his life and deeds are shrouded in uncertainty. Historians debate whether Arthur actually existed as a historical person, and if so, the extent to which the legendary tales of his life and exploits are based on actual events. Now that we've established the historical context, let's delve into the origins and significance of the Sword and the Stone. When discussing the Sword and the Stone, it is essential to clarify that there is no direct historical link between the 5th-6th century Britain and the legendary narrative. There is no archaeological evidence or historical account from that era that supports the story of Arthur pulling a sword from a stone. This tale is not found in any contemporary sources or historical records from the time in which Arthur is believed to have lived, if he indeed existed. According to historian and author Stephen A. Givens, the motif may have originated from traditions of Sarmatian Alans or other cultures involving swords plunged into the earth or water. He suggests that this concept could have been incorporated into the Arthurian legends later on. In fact, the earliest versions of the Arthurian tales, such as those found in early Welsh literature, make no mention of the sword and the stone. The story only gained prominence in 13th century Arthurian romances, notably in texts like The History of the Kings of Britain by Geoffrey of Monmouth. However, it was in the 15th century that Sir Thomas Malory's Le Morte d'Arthur solidified the sword and the stone as a quintessential part of the Arthurian narrative. What's interesting is that in earlier versions of the legend, the sword and the stone and Arthur's other legendary sword, Excalibur, are depicted as separate weapons. The story of Arthur pulling a sword from a stone to establish his kingship is distinct from the account of Merlin retrieving Excalibur from the Lady of the Lake for Arthur. In some versions, the sword and the stone is not even named Excalibur. Let's take a closer look at the tale itself. The story of the sword and the stone typically goes as follows. Arthur, who may have been an orphan or a young squire, learns of an extraordinary challenge issued by an unnamed king, possibly Uther Pendragon, Arthur's father. This king has had a sword placed in a stone